from the heart of where innovation, money, and power collide. In Silicon Valley and beyond, this is Bloomberg Technology with Emily Chang.
Chang in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up in the next hour, Musk's mission to Mars. The SpaceX founder is about to unveil progress on his Starship system that aims to one day carry people to the Red Planet. We are live from Boca Chica, Texas. Plus, Twitter's new CEO says investors shouldn't expect major changes to the product or growth strategy. We'll catch up with CFO Ned Siegel post fourth quarter results. And CRISPR, the breakthrough gene editing technology, is now 10 years old. The Nobel Prize winner behind it, Jennifer Doudna, will join us to talk about what the next 10 years of biomedical innovation hold. All of that in a moment, but first, stocks falling today, inflation spiking to record highs, and rate hikes looming. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Kriti Gupta for details. Kriti, investors got the jitters.
Yeah, Emily, it's a pretty scary picture when you look at the stock market. A lot of red on the screen, a lot of it coming down to several factors. You mentioned them. The inflation report in particular, CPI coming in hotter than expected. So, of course, no surprise there. That is going to increase those rate hike bets. The idea that the Fed needs to be even more aggressive to really tackle this. And then on top of that, really the cherry on top of a pretty hawkish Sunday, the idea that James Bullard comes out and says, well, 50 basis points is on the table, as is a 1% rate hike or 1% worth of rate hike increases by July. He's seen as a kind of consensus of perhaps a leader of Fed policy when it comes to what his themes are, even though he is considered kind of an ultra hawk. But you can see pretty clearly the NASDAQ took it on the chin, down 2%. That VXN gauge, the volatility for the NASDAQ really higher. But I think the biggest move in the market has to be the 10-year yield, up 10 basis points on an intraday basis. And it's the margin of the move that matters when it comes to tech, because this is not 2021 anymore. Higher yields don't spook tech, but a big move like 10 basis points that we saw today, that is definitely going to spook the NASDAQ, and you see that red on the screen. But let's get to some earnings here, because that's really where you saw pockets of green, and start with Twitter, because Twitter did actually come out with earnings this morning, coming out with some lackluster numbers, but actually announcing a higher buyback, $4 billion worth. And you saw Twitter shares actually rally intraday, investors looking past those lackluster earnings. But I want to show you on a longer term basis, for the last 2 years, essentially in the pandemic era, social media stocks have been making a round trip, not just Twitter, the likes of Meta, Snapchat, Pinterest as well. You can see they had that major rally, but now they are turning around. The question is, can they redeem themselves going into the rest of the year? And another positive story we have to look at is Expedia. They, of course, reported after the bell some pretty strong numbers when it comes to bookings and when it comes to simply the rebound of travel, despite this last quarter being dominated by the Omicron variant. Does that continue into the summer? We'll have to wait and see, Emily.
All right, Kriti, thanks so much. Meantime, in a matter of hours, SpaceX founder Elon Musk plans to outline progress that the company has made on Starship, a massive, gleaming launch system that aims to one day carry people to Mars. Bloomberg's Ed Ludlow is in Boca Chica, Texas, where Musk will make this presentation. Ed, I understand there are throngs of people there, hundreds of cars. Set the stage for us.
It's just madness here, Emily. I got to the airport last night, no rental cars left. Every hotel in Brownsville, the nearest city, is sold out. There have been hundreds of cars parked around Starbase, which is over my right shoulder, and over my left shoulder, that's the full stack Starship. So Starship, the spacecraft on the top, the super heavy booster on the bottom, 349 feet in total. And people have been going up to it all day, taking photos. But I just got kicked out. The cops kicked me out, Em, because they're doing a security sweep. They're going to let me back later tonight to hear Elon.
All right, so what are we expecting Elon Musk to say?
Yeah, so he's done this before. September 2019, classic Elon, a PowerPoint slideshow where he kind of follows the PowerPoint, but not really. He starts talking rocket science. He ends with human biology. You know, he talks about the quantum realm, all kinds of stuff. But what we want to hear, when are we going to Mars, Emily? That's probably the main one, right? Because that is the future of the Starship system, to carry the payload, a heavy payload, 100 metric tons to Mars, or 100 passengers. And in 2019, he said, oh, in a few months, we'll do an orbital test. It never happened. And you'll remember what happened last year, right? Lots of fireballs, lots of crashes after that little 6-mile hop. And eventually in May of last year, it did make a 6-mile leap into the air, the Starship, and then land itself successfully back here in Boca Chica. Where have we gone since then? We want to know.
So what do we think the answer is to when? I mean, is this years off, decades off, centuries?
Yeah, so we know that we have a few milestones we know about, right? We think that an orbital test flight for Starship is going to happen potentially this quarter, at least in the first half of 2022. The FAA actually has to conduct an inspection of what you see around me, which is respectfully just a massive swamp. But it is a wildlife sanctuary, so they've got to do a wildlife and environment assessment. If that's successful, we could get an orbital test flight. And then what SpaceX is talking about is a mission by 2024 unmanned to Mars. Remember, Maezawa, the Japanese billionaire, he has a ticket to the moon and back, hopefully a return ticket to the moon and back on Starship for next year. So we want to know if that's going ahead as well.
And what about a man to Mars? When does that happen? Or a woman?
This is classic Elon Musk, right? Everything that he said in 2019, respectfully, he missed those deadlines by a long way. But clearly they've made progress, right? What's so astonishing is when you're standing underneath the thing over my left shoulder, the full stack, the sheer scale of it. This is not a Falcon 9 rocket. This is next level. It is ginormous. And all of the 29 or 32 Raptor engines that it have, each individual one can generate 450,000 pounds of thrust. It seems so real. We just need to see it go into space. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. We will be waiting for all the details and more gesticulating from you, our Ed Ludlow, on the ground in Boca Chica, Texas, waiting for Elon Musk. Thanks, Ed. Well, the Biden administration plans to spend $5 billion over 5 years to install chargers for electric cars. Most of them would be placed along interstate highways. This is an attempt to convince more drivers to buy electric vehicles. The money coming from the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed by Congress. Coming up, Twitter's new CEO is aiming to move faster, but not changing course. We'll break down Twitter's fourth quarter results with CFO Ned Siegel up next here in the studio. This is Bloomberg. Maintaining the status quo seemed to be the theme of Twitter's fourth quarter earnings call. New CEO Parag Agrawal promised to push projects through faster, but told investors they shouldn't expect major changes to the company's product or business growth strategy under his leadership. Ned Siegel, Twitter's CFO, with us here now in the studio. Great to see you in person.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here in person.
It's awesome to have you. It's been a while. So this was your first report without Jack Dorsey, with Parag in place. Let's wait on the numbers for a second. I just want to know how the last few months been going? What's it been like under new leadership?
It's been great. So Parag's been at Twitter for 10 years, so he knows the people. He was a critical part of building and implementing the strategy over the last few years. He's been a teammate to many of us at staff, so when he was promoted to this job and he made some very fast changes around how we're structured, it felt very natural. It was somebody who you knew came from a position of a deep understanding of our work and who cared a lot about the people. It feels like he's off to a great start.
Now, it sounds like he's planning to just execute the existing plan. I shouldn't say just, but is that the case, and is that really the right strategy?
Well, there is no change to our strategy. We feel really good about the work that we're doing, but we know we need to move faster. We know we need to drive more accountability. We know we need to be more metrics focused. And so some of the changes that we put in place are really designed to be in service of more accountability and being more metrics driven.
Let's talk about the numbers, though. Ad revenue came in light, user growth came in light, the forecast was light. You're reiterating this goal in 2023, 315 million users. You say that that is realistic. But if you grew about 13% last year, doesn't that mean you need to grow over 40% over the next couple of years? And is that really possible?
So we came in the top half of the revenue guidance range that we provided for the fourth quarter, and we came in line with the DAU outlook that we provided for the fourth quarter as well. So we're pleased with our results for the fourth quarter. As we look ahead, we shared some metrics today that we hadn't shared before, that we've seen 35% growth year over year in signups on Twitter in the fourth quarter. We've seen 25% growth in signups plus reactivations. That means we're getting more people coming to the front door of Twitter, which then gives us more opportunity to convert people to DAU over time. It's those insights or those early indicators that give us confidence that we can accelerate DAU growth in the United States and internationally over the course of this year, and that we can be on track for those goals by the end of next year.
So over 40%, 45% over 2 years.
Well, I think you're compounding it. What it is 20 or 20% more growth compounded over this year and next year.
So let's talk about rebooting. I know that you've talked about how these dormant accounts, people are coming back to the platform. What's different about rebooting now than, let's say, 2019, when some of these users may have taken a pause?
So there's so much that's changed on Twitter. If you just think about the onboarding process, now 40% of the accounts that are created on Twitter during the fourth quarter were created using single sign-on. That means people use their Apple or their Google ID. They didn't have to create it or remember a new password. They didn't abandon the sign-in process while they were in process. Second, we're asking people about the interests that they care about when they go through that process of creating an account. If we know what you care about, we can make much better recommendations to you then and over time. So we can turn an at-bat into a loyal audience member because we've shown somebody right away how useful Twitter can be. These are two good examples of what we've done, but there's so many other things as well that have improved.
Always love the baseball metaphors. The $4 billion buyback, what is the rationale there?
So we left last year with $6.5 billion of cash on our balance sheet. We added another billion very early in January from the proceeds of the MoPub sale. So with $7.5 billion of cash, we felt like we could, one, commit to buying back shares over time, and $2 billion in the very near term, and continue to execute on our plans. Hiring, we're going to grow headcount over 20% this year. We'll continue to be acquisitive, bringing technology and talent to our company, and continuing to build the infrastructure we need to deliver Twitter.
You recently started allowing users to use NFTs as their profile pictures. How is this going? How popular do you expect this feature to be? And how much traffic do you think it will drive to the subscription service?
So if you pay $3 a month in the United States and a few other countries, you have access to what we call Twitter Blue. You get to see the top articles organized in your network. You can undo a tweet. There are a few other features as well, and one of the cool ones that we announced just in the last couple of weeks was that you can use an NFT picture, or an NFT as your profile picture. Every time we launch a new feature into Twitter Blue, we learn more and more about how people want to use the service, where people find value, who the right audience is for a service like this. We're going to continue to iterate on both the price points and the features that we include in a subscription offering to make sure we get it right.
So everyone seems to have a view, whether it's overhyped or not, on the metaverse. What is Twitter's view on the metaverse? How do you define it? How important do you think it will be? And do you have a strategy?
Well, Twitter's about what's happening in the world and what people are talking about right now. If there's a topic or event that you care about, if you have something you want to share about it, you want to learn from others, we want to make sure that the tweets are available to you wherever you are. Whether you're on your sofa, or you're on your way to Mars with Elon, or you're sitting in front of your computer screen interviewing somebody, we want the tweets to be there for you. Some of that's going to happen in our app. It's also going to happen through our APIs, which allow people to improve the experience involving tweets, either in our app or elsewhere. And so we'll just continue to work hard to make sure that wherever people want to find tweets, that they're there for them.
So do you expect this to happen in the metaverse? Do you expect the metaverse to be a thing someday? And does Twitter need to be part of building it?
I think virtual reality is inevitable, that there are going to be a lot of different ways that people experience events. Sometimes they're going to be there, other times they may have goggles on. And whatever it may be, we want to make sure that the tweets are there for you to see them, be a part of the conversation. The Super Bowl this weekend is a great example that so many people use Twitter as a companion when they're watching something either at the event or on TV. The Olympics, March Madness in the United States, these are other great examples of it as well.
You mentioned the Super Bowl, obviously the Olympics. We're potentially seeing midterm elections later this year. You know, in the past, when I've asked you about big political events or elections, you've told me, you know, there are things happening around the world on Twitter all the time. Is that still the case, that traffic is more consistent, or do you see those bumps happening over time when there are big events? And do you see those as ways to draw new people to the platform or reactivate those dormant accounts?
Big events are incredible opportunities for us to grow our audience, to show people how much better Twitter is than the last time they came to the service, and to help advertisers find new customers on our service. But those big events are happening all over the world. It could be a cricket match in India. It could be an election in Brazil. More than 80% of the people who use Twitter are outside of the United States. And so that means that a lot of the events that are happening that are drawing people to our service aren't actually happening here in the United States.
Twitter Spaces, I know you're on there a lot. How much traffic is this driving? How do you expect it to be built out?
So Twitter Spaces has been a great way to get people involved in more conversations with the spoken word, not just with tweets, with text and video and pictures and so on. And we did one today to talk about our quarter. The NFL and the NBA have included them in our recent deals with them, so they do weekly spaces. I hope you'll join one soon so we can talk about the things going on in the technology landscape around the Bay Area and beyond. But it's been off to a really good start so far.
I'll see you back there soon.
Thanks,
Twitter
Emily.
CFO, Ned Siegel, thanks so much for coming in today. So great to see you. All right, coming up, Sonos shares jumping in aftermarket trading, beating estimates, and apparently the supply chain crunch. We're going to have Sonos CEO Patrick Spence with us next. This is Bloomberg. Speaker maker Sonos managed to weather supply chain pain, beating Wall Street estimates in their latest results. This may be thanks to the rise of remote work, with consumers increasingly building out new audio experiences at home. Joining us now to talk about all the latest results, the outlook ahead, Sonos CEO Patrick Spence. Patrick, I want to start on the supply issue because we've seen weakness in so many different companies because of the chip crisis, the lack of supplies. How did you navigate this so well?
You know, it's an incredible amount of work by our team to both re-engineer some of our products so that we can actually put components that were available into our products, as well doing some spot buys in the market, really shaking the trees in terms of being able to find those components, and then, navigating the container shortages, the congestion at the ports, COVID, Omicron kind of coming out. Our team just did a tremendous job, and we ended up, as you saw, being able to deliver more for our customers, thankfully, and exceed expectations. So I'm super proud of the team. And I think we've put the toughest quarter from a supply chain perspective behind us.
Now, sounds like there's going to be a surge in demand and a lack of supply for a while. What's the outlook for the rest of the year? Can you continue to do what you did this past quarter for the next three?
Yeah, that is definitely the focus. The consumers remained really strong. So we left the quarter with a big backlog. Our consumer, seems really strong into January, February. We, of course, still have some backlog. We still need to fill our channels with inventory, but we do see it getting better during the course of the year from everybody we're talking to out there. So I think the worst is behind us, and we are looking forward to an exciting rest of the year.
How much has the pandemic boosted sales? And if the pandemic is moving into the rearview mirror and people have their gear, they have the speakers that they need, does that mean a slowdown could be ahead? I mean, what does longer term growth look like?
We're not a one and done product, right? So the interesting thing about our business model is that our existing customers come back and buy more over time. So last year, 45% of our sales went to existing customers returning and actually adding another Sonos to their system. And we grew the average number of products per customer to 3. We believe over time we can grow that to 4 or 6. But the other important thing about the fact that those existing customers are coming back and buying more is they also go and tell their friends to get Sonos. So they're our number one source of getting new customers. And all those new customers we added over the last couple of years, we know from history, they will come back and add more products to their system over time. So we feel really good about the way we're positioned, for the next few years.
So let's talk about adding new products to the portfolio. Everyone wants to know about those Sonos headphones. Any updates that you can share there?
We have a lot of exciting products coming for sure, especially as we go back outside. I think Roam and Move, our 2 portable products, are ones that I think are going to be huge hits as we get into the spring and go through it. And of course, Emily, I will come back when we have new product news ready to share.
All right, well, huge fans of Sonos Move here. Folks also wondering about a voice assistant. Siri, Alexa, Google, you're competing with all of them. Why not launch your own, given that you've got the equipment?
What a great idea. So, a couple of years ago, we did acquire a company that specializes in voice. So stay tuned for more on that. We do think that there's a real opportunity in really addressing kind of audio specifically, music specifically when it comes to voice. There's a lot of great kind of ask anything broad solutions out there. But we have some ideas on how this area can be even more interesting.
You recently won an IP lawsuit against Google in kind of a David versus Goliath story. And I'm curious if you believe some of these bigger tech giants have too much power, too much dominance overall.
Absolutely. And I've taken to testifying in front of Congress as well on this front, speaking with the White House when they reached out, because, having been in the industry for 25 years, we've never seen companies really generate this much power and use it then as well to really squeeze the oxygen out of new competitors that are coming up. And one of those things is some of these big tech companies really using their profits in one part of the business to predatory price the smart speakers that copy what we do and these kind of things. And so that's why it was so important we took Google to the ITC, and why I think it's important to speak out on this issue.
You've talked about how Apple has too much power too. What's the solution? I mean, is it a breakup?
I think we have rules on the books, quite frankly, that talk about predatory pricing, that kind of address some of these issues, and they need to be enforced. And I think with the new administration, new leadership, the DOJ, FTC, some of the bills that Senator Klobuchar and Senator Grassley are bringing through, I think are heading in the right direction in terms of really spurring a whole new generation of innovation into the United States. So I am optimistic based on where we are today, but we're going to have to watch and see how that develops over the next year.
So about 30 seconds left. What's the long-term growth roadmap?
Yeah, we have a huge opportunity ahead. We are in about 10% of the homes that we think we can address over time, and we'll do $2 billion in revenue this year, which is fantastic, but we play in a space with $90 billion in annual sales. So we have so much opportunity when it comes to sound and really being the sound of your entire life, and that's where we're going. So
no plans to be acquired soon, because that's often the speculation that Sonos is an acquisition target.
You can see from our results, we are putting off some really great cash flow. We have a strong balance sheet. We are acquiring companies. So we feel like we're in a great spot. And I am all for a lot more independent companies. I think it's better for innovation. I think it's better for the country. So we're going to stay focused on doing everything we can to build this company into a multi-billion-dollar one.
Patrick Spence, CEO of Sonos. Thank you.
Thanks,
Coming
Emily.
up, it's been 10 years since the discovery of the CRISPR gene editing technology. The biochemist and Nobel Prize winner behind it, Jennifer Doudna, joins us next to talk about the next 10 years of implementing and commercializing this technology. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang in San Francisco. CRISPR, a breakthrough gene editing technology co-developed by Nobel Prize winner and UC Berkeley professor Jennifer Doudna, is turning 10 years old. The discovery that CRISPR could be used to rewrite DNA launched biomedical research into warp speed, and innovation in this space, including drugs based on this technology, has been accelerating ever since. Now, the global investment firm Sixth Street is bringing Professor Doudna on as a chief science advisor to help with the commercial development of CRISPR. And I want to bring in Professor Doudna, as well as Marty Chavez, vice chair and partner at Sixth Street now. Jennifer and Marty, thanks for joining us. Jennifer, 10 years since CRISPR, and I'm so curious about the next 10. How is gene editing technology going to impact our lives over the next decade?
Well, thanks for inviting us back, or inviting me back, Emily. Great to be here. The next 10 years of CRISPR, yeah, I think it's very exciting to think what's ahead. Clearly, we're seeing a lot of advances right now in clinical medicine, in diagnostics, and I think increasingly we're going to see doors opening in agriculture and synthetic biology as well. I'm very excited about the ways that genome editing is going to intersect with computer science and artificial intelligence in ways that are hard to imagine. So I think increasingly in 10 years, we'll see CRISPR woven into many aspects of our daily lives.
Marty, Jennifer's expertise is obviously unparalleled. How do you hope having her on board will help guide and inform your investment decisions?
Well, Emily, at Sixth Street, we've been very successful in the past in our thematic investing. So, and a theme would not be long, short equity. A theme would be the convergence of healthcare and data. And to be a credible partner and to take full advantage of the flexibility that our investors give us with their capital, we need deep expertise in the field. And that's going to make us better investors as well as better partners to the management team. And so with Dr. Doudna's unparalleled expertise, this is a magnificent golden age of biology that is dawning, and we're thrilled to be collaborating with her.
So, Jennifer, what does the commercialization of CRISPR look like to you? What sort of business, company, investment opportunities do you see that have potential?
It's interesting, Emily. I think the technology today is at a point where its demonstrated potential is vast. And we're poised at a time when increasingly we'll see opportunities for real world applications of CRISPR. And I think it's incredibly important to make that possible with appropriate investment. Couldn't imagine a better partner than Sixth Street. This is a firm with deep expertise in the financial world. They've done a lot of investing over the years in different aspects of healthcare writ large. And with Marty's expertise in computer science and data analysis, it's going to be a really exciting opportunity to make sure that opportunities that have to do with genetics and genome editing are appropriately capitalized.
You use that word appropriate, and as we've discussed, there are major ethical concerns about how gene editing technology can be used for better or for worse. How are your views evolving on the appropriate use of the technology? Is it okay to use it to choose the color of your baby's eyes, for example, or simply to eliminate genetic disease from your genetic line?
As you know, Emily, I've been involved for several years in the global discussion around the ethics of CRISPR. I think that's incredibly important as the technology advances. Right now, there are so many opportunities that frankly don't involve any of the things that you just said that I think we're going to have plenty on our plates. And in the meantime, it's just important that the global scientific community continue to work on appropriate transparency as the technology advances.
So, Marty, given that you run healthcare and tech initiatives, what are the opportunities that you see? What are you most excited about in terms of the implementation of this technology?
Well, Emily, fundamentally, what drew Jennifer and us together is a shared vision. In one of our early conversations, I remember back over the summer and in the fall, Jennifer and I just got incredibly excited about this convergence of computer science and biology. I feel like I've been waiting for this all my life. I majored in biochemistry because a professor told me that the future of biology was computational. I worked on artificial intelligence in medicine 30 years ago. The computers just weren't fast enough. But now they are fast enough, and we have enough data to build high-fidelity digital twins in software that accelerate the process of scientific discovery. And I think that intersection is what got Jennifer and Sixth Street excited to bring her expertise in the science and the bioethics and our flexible capital, put them together to make people actually better, make CRISPR a reality in people's lives and in their health.
Marty, the lack of diligence around Theranos and the proclamations of Elizabeth Holmes has sort of captured the fascination of the world, and I wonder how that's impacted the scientific investing community. And if you think investment firms like yours need more people like Jennifer Doudna, folks with educational backgrounds and academic backgrounds like your own, to make these kinds of decisions.
Well, certainly there are many things that went wrong in other companies, but we just keep our focus on ourselves and our knitting. And one thing that's worked for us, as I mentioned, is thematic investing, a deep and rigorous underwriting process, as well as deep partnerships with the domain experts. There's no substitute for that in the due diligence and in the partnering with the management teams. It all leads to a virtuous cycle of better returns for our investors and making people better, bringing the science and translating it into better healthcare outcomes.
Jennifer, of course, you've also been a pioneer in mRNA technology that's powered our COVID vaccines. And I'm curious where your thoughts are on the pandemic now as this drags on. Do you think we can really prevent the next pandemic before it happens? Or is this a cycle we're going to see over and over again over the course of history?
Well, there's no doubt there are a lot of lessons learned in the current situation. I certainly hope we can, if not completely prevent the next pandemic, at least be better prepared than we clearly were for this one. Honestly, the combination of innovation, investment in fundamental science that went on over decades to bring about the mRNA vaccines that many have benefited from is a wonderful example of how science steps up. And I just think we need to continue to invest in that kind of fundamental innovative work that's going to prepare us for the future, whatever it brings.
All right. Well, Dr. Jennifer Doudna, Nobel Prize winner, and Sixth Street Marty Chavez, thank you both for joining us. We're excited to see where the bets you make, and we'll be watching your next moves. Thank you. Coming up, we're going to be joined by Robinhood's Chief Legal Officer, Dan Gallagher, for an exclusive interview and an update on Robinhood's roadmap ahead. Plus, crypto wallets. That's next. This is Bloomberg. The US, UK, and Australia are warning of increased global threats from crypto ransomware, according to a finding from the cryptocurrency tracking firm Chainalysis. This as ransomware attacks have surged. Time now for our crypto report and our own Shonali Bostic for more. Tell us more about these threats, Shonali.
Well, Emily, just take a look, and this is from data from Chainalysis, the blockchain data platform. The scope of how much these payments have jumped to more than $600 million with ransomware payments in 2021, likely to be higher once all the data comes in than what you saw in 2020. That could surpass 700 million easily, and that is quadruple. That is more than quadruple what you saw in 2019. So part of this also, Emily, is a jump in the average payments. You're seeing more than $118,000 in 2021 when it comes to the average payment per ransomware attack, and that increased from $88,000 the year prior and $25,000 in 2019. So it's just exponential, both in the total number that you're seeing in ransomware attacks as well as what you're seeing per ransomware attack for the average payment for each of them.
What are we learning about where most of these hacks are coming from and who's behind them?
Yeah, it's a great question because now you have global coordination coming from the US, the UK, Australia, and there's a lot of worries here about ransomware attacks coming from Russia, coming from Eastern Europe, and then also Chainalysis had also looked at the cryptocurrency wallets associated with ransomware groups such as Conti, DarkSide, and Evil Corp. So learning more about those groups is going to be key for regulators in this space, but also, again, this is a global coordinated effort to really crack down on some of these ransomware attacks that are happening.
All right, Shonali Bostic, thank you for that update. I want to stick with crypto for a moment, with Robinhood recently launching its crypto wallets with 2 million people on the waiting list and looking to expand from 1,000 to 10,000 customers next month. I want to bring in Robinhood's Chief Legal Officer and former SEC Commissioner, Dan Gallagher. For more, Dan, great to have you with us. Putting your regulatory hat on, what are those 2 million people? What should they be waiting for in terms of tax rules on their digital assets?
Don't make me put my regulator hat back on, Emily. It was so much fun to take it off years ago. But no, the rollout of crypto wallets is a big event here at Robinhood. The refrain we heard from customers time and time again in social media elsewhere was win wallets. And we were obviously hard at work behind the scenes trying to put together the technology to offer this to customers. So finally getting to the stage of rolling it out is just great excitement. And it's a good feel here at Robinhood anytime we are able to give our customers what they so sorely ask for and need.
Okay, but there's also great uncertainty about what regulation lies ahead. What should anyone who owns a digital asset these days be preparing for in terms of tax rules and other issues?
Yeah, look, obviously the tax status is something that you've seen played with in Congress and various bills that weren't germane necessarily to cryptocurrency, but through little riders and things, there have been various tax implications with crypto that have arisen over the years. At Robinhood, obviously, our main business, our traditional business, is brokerage, and we are fully compliant in the way that we roll out tax notices and all the tax documentation our customers need, and we apply that to our crypto offering too. So we're feeling really well prepared to serve our customers in that regard, and I think other platforms are going to have to catch up when tax reporting requirements are applied to them specifically.
And given your former regulatory position, I know you are also talking with regulators often. What regulation are you preparing for in terms of how it's going to impact Robinhood, not just on the crypto front, but across the platform? Regulators have a lot of questions.
Yeah, look, it's heretofore uncharted regulatory territory. Kind of reminds you of the OTC derivative space in the years before the financial crisis. A lot of interest, a lot of customer interest, and you've seen the rise in crypto ownership by retail investors in the U.S. I think some measures I've seen $3 trillion. So a really important asset class to pay attention to, a really important asset class not to kill in the crib. That's as policymakers look into us, it doesn't mean they need to bring their hammer and look for every nail. At Robinhood, we obviously strive to roll out a safe product to our customers, one that has guardrails around it and education, transparency on fees and the like, and notably, quality execution, which is something you don't hear about too much in the crypto space. We bring that DNA from our brokerage side into crypto, and we're focusing more and more on just ensuring that our customers get great execution. And Emily, on the regulatory side, the one thing that's really interesting that we're doing, you've heard the SEC, you've heard Chair Gensler in particular say, to you crypto platforms, come on in and talk to us, come on in and register. I spent a lot of time at the SEC, and it wasn't exactly sure what the contours of that registration might look like, but we've engaged with the SEC. We've had a few meetings with the staff, and we're trying to flesh out, what would this look like to be an SEC registered platform? I'm not sure, quite frankly, where it's going to lead us, but the SEC staff has been very receptive, and we're engaging in some pretty substantive discussions with them about what it might look like.
Well, it's been a year since that big GameStop moment, and in a blog post last month, you said you never want your customers to be surprised with trading restrictions again. What's the message to retail investors that are considering Robinhood now? How can you give them confidence that won't happen again?
Look, I mean, there was no bigger trauma in the history of Robinhood than having to stop the buying in certain very, very popular meme stocks a year ago, right? It's just antithetical to our whole mission and purpose is to cease trading in any flavor. And obviously, our customers let us know how they felt about it. They didn't like it. And reputationally, it was not a good look for us. So we felt it. We hear the pain of our customers, and we've done everything in our power to ensure that something like that never happens again. We're sitting right now, Emily, on 5 times the amount of regulatory net capital in our clearing firm, Robinhood Securities, that we had last year at this time. We had 500 million then. We have 2.7 billion sitting in regulatory net capital. That puts us, by the way, in the general vicinity of some of the mega investment banks on Wall Street. So we went out, raised the money. That money is committed effectively to our customers by locking it up in regulatory capital and ensuring that we have that massive backstop to ensure that restrictions never need to be applied again.
Meantime, the price of Robinhood shares has declined significantly over the last year. And I'm curious, you're facing several class action lawsuits. What's your general response to these?
Look, I mean, Robinhood, like other fintech and financial services firms and tech firms over the last several months, has encountered some macro headwinds, right? If you look at the performance of this sector generally, I think, we largely mirror that. And these things, work in cycles. And, for me, for Vlad and the rest of the management team at Robinhood, we get it. We're playing the long game here. We're building great products that customers want. We're focusing on customers and products and safety first, and we're not really looking at the stock price worrying about that. On the class action side of things, I mean, this is life in America as a public company. You have plaintiffs firms that just live for stock movement in a negative direction, and they'll come in and sue. I feel very confident in that context that we'll prevail on the merits, that there's no justification for it.
Meantime, there is still SEC interest in the gamification of markets. There's this suit from the state of Massachusetts saying you're taking advantage of young, inexperienced investors. What are the chances you might settle here? Are there any changes that you might accept from the state?
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate that we had to litigate with Massachusetts, but unfortunately, they dropped a very unfounded complaint against us, making allegations that simply aren't true. One problem we're facing at Robinhood as a disruptor is, we've brought to bear technology in a very old marketplace, the brokerage marketplace, that has disrupted everything. We've dropped fees. We've brought in a whole new generation of investors, right? And if you look at Emily Fed data showing the rise in retail investing over the last 5 years, the rise is really incredible. The diversity of the new investors is amazing, effectively doubling in the last 5 years. Right. And that tracks pretty closely to the rise of Robinhood. So we feel really, really good about bringing these people into markets that had been shut for years to them. And I think regulators, whether it be Massachusetts or elsewhere, they need to kind of get with the times, right? The old rule books don't necessarily apply. And quite frankly, in some instances, the old rule books, shouldn't have been applied, as with the Massachusetts complaint.
But maybe Charlie Munger's Almanac still does. I see that one behind you. Robinhood's Chief Legal Officer. Dan Gallagher with
You are an eagle eye, Emily. Well done.
It's our amazing producers who've got those eagle eyes. Dan, thank you for joining us. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Emily. It's been great to you.
Okay, coming up, YouTube has big plans for 2022, and it involves the metaverse. We'll talk about all that and more next. This is Bloomberg. YouTube said it will start creating metaverse experiences on its video platform, beginning with gaming, following competitors' investments in the buzzy category. For more, I want to bring in Bloomberg's Nico Grant. Nico, what is YouTube's metaverse play going to look like?
YouTube says that it's still very early days, but that gaming is, the important category to start with when it comes to making immersive experiences. And this company has not decided to bet the farm on the metaverse the way that Facebook, now Meta, has. And so it essentially means more virtual reality videos on the platform, which have been there since 2016.
How does this fit into Google, YouTube's parent company, their track record on virtual reality? What is it really?
Well, Google could always say that we were there quite early. Back in 2014, they created the cardboard platform, known for its distinctive cardboard box that you could place your phone into. But after a while, interest in that tapered off. The company has been far more circumspect about how it's going to make a play in the metaverse, focusing instead on the search platform, Maps, and YouTube. And so many Silicon Valley watchers have been quite keen to hear what the company has to say. Google always says, whether it's Neil Mohan, the chief product officer at YouTube, or Sundar Pichai, head of the whole company, always says it's early days.
All right. Well, it seems to be early days for just about everyone. We will be watching Nico Grant, who covers Google and YouTube for us. Thank you. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to be talking with Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi after a big earnings report, big investor day today. You don't want to miss that. Coming up tomorrow, right here on Bloomberg Television. This is Bloomberg.